It has come to my attention that some of you may be wondering what kind of approach we're going to take to arm balances as we workshop them together. And I wanted to just take a few minutes to show you some of the approaches that I take when going into inversions, arm balances, all of the standing balances. I mean, I would argue any pose, but the ones that really require us to start to work from the center of the body and not just muscle in with the arms or with the legs. So one of the things that I sequence into every arm balance practice is core work. So we might begin with something like the Pilates single bent leg stretch so that you're lifting your shoulder blades and you're working with your breath, of course, not talking like I am right now, but you're working to engage the deep transversus abdominals way in deep as you move, either holding or moving slowly like I am now, or sometimes accessing those muscle fibers for quick movements by doubling up the frequency of the movement and the tempo of the movement. And then we make Pilates moves more specific to what it is that we're going to be doing in the arm balances. So here, for instance, we would transition to balance point from the Pilates sequences. So we inhale, neutral spine. Exhale to scoop in the abdominals and roll up. But now at the top, we're going to add crane, Bakasana. So here I am in a different relationship to gravity than I usually am when I practice Bakasana. So for those of us who are getting over the fear of, well, the very reasonable fear of breaking one's nose or bumping one's head as we approach Bakasana in its traditional form, this position strengthens the core and creates the shape. So we build strength and flexibility and the confidence and self-awareness necessary for a basic arm balance like crane, but in the seated position instead of in the arm balance position. So every time we exhale, we strengthen the transversus and the pelvic floor as we roll down. Inhale, neutral. Exhale, roll up. Again, waking up the core. And then inhale, find the shape of Bakasana. Lift the chest, push the imaginary floor away, squeeze the heels to the back side. Now, if you're someone who has different proportions from mine, and you find that you in Bakasana really need to squeeze in, then every time you come up, we'll place the block between the knees so that you can get that practice of accessing not just the transversus, but also the inner leg as much as you need to find Bakasana. So as you exhale, roll back down, slowly, slowly, slowly. Inhale. Exhale to roll up. Inhale at the top, with or without the block, to access the inner leg a little bit more. Exhale as you roll back down. So after a few repetitions of this, we're ready to flip our crane and start to work in the traditional relationship to gravity. Now, since I'm practicing at home, I've stacked some pillows here. In a yoga studio, you can use blankets, of course. And as you inhale, you lift one foot, right? You're all familiar with this traditional sequence for working your way into crane. And if you've been practicing that for a while, and again, you want to flip your relationship to gravity and specifically start to work on a different entryway to an arm balance, which is another good strategy for approaching the ones that are newer to you, then what you're going to do is let the head drop down. Find your Ujjayi breath and come up to crane. So you're going to drop down, rest the head a little, and then come up to crane. And of course, the first couple times that you do this, you'll find your toes will drop down, right? But that's a lot less scary than your nose dropping down to the floor. So you start with a controlled head on the support, like the bolster or the blankets or the pillows, and you lift up and send the chest forward before your toes drop down. So those are just a few of the strategies that we'll use for getting into the arm balances that you choose to focus on in our practice together. We'll use specific core strengtheners the things that we know wake up the deep transversus, the pelvic floor, the multifidi along the spine. And we'll modify those in order to make them specific to the actions that we need for the arm balances that we're focused on. And you can suggest those arm balances in our work together. We'll also flip our relationship to gravity, doing arm balances on our backs, or seated, or up against a wall, in order to find the actions in a lower risk position. And we'll use a couple other strategies as well to work our way towards the less familiar arm balances and the ones that you'd like to work on. So thank you very much for watching this little introduction. Feel free to practice any of these techniques at home on the basic or intermediate or advanced arm balances that you're working on in your own practice. Namaste.